Happy Sunday. This is Dr. Elsie Coe with Lead Physician, the basic program that helps physicians empower them to leadership positions using skills that they did not learn, we did not learn in medical school and residency. I'm so happy and grateful to have Dr. David Dahl with us today. Hi, David.
Good morning, Elsie.
David, I would love to introduce you. You're a very unique person in what you do and your understanding of a disruptive physician. So, Dr. David Dahl is now a healthcare executive coach for leaders and physicians. And he's an anesthesiologist by training. And for the last 2 decades, he's held numerous physician leadership roles and worked for the ACGME for different companies as a chief medical officer. And what's so different about him when I met him is that he told me that he loves to work with disruptive physicians. I thought that was unique. How many people do you know like to work with people with difficult personalities? So let's just start. We want to talk to him about this because this is just a continuation of the conversations we've had, including with Dr. Riyad Kashesho. And he tells us that there's a perspective that we need to think about when we approach that person, that difficult person in the workplace. Can you first start off, David, by telling us what you mean by a disruptive physician?
Yeah, so disruptive physician, that's one of the problems with this label is it means something different to everyone. And Dr. Kashesho 2 weeks ago gave you the Joint Commission definition of disruptive physician, and it goes along the lines of any behavior that adversely impacts patient safety.
Right.
But that means something different to everyone. So it's everything from physical violence, throwing things, to rolling your eyes, leaning in too much into a conversation, getting into personal space. And so really that's one of the critical elements of understanding and creating a plan to mitigate the behavior is really understanding what the culture, the organization means when they tell you that they have a disruptive physician or that you're a disruptive physician.
Got it. Yep, that's so true. And by the way, I just want to make sure the audience knows that we're not here to put physicians down at all. It's about, bringing awareness and helping physicians and helping healthcare organizations and leaders help physicians, because there's an awareness that's lacking that causes it. No one wants to be that nasty person. No one wants to be thought of as the nasty person. So just tell us why, David, why do you say that you like working with disruptive physicians?
So just going back, Elsie, that point you made is just so critical. When I go around the country, or when I went around the country with the ACGME, what I heard was that, sorry about my clock there.
Okay.
This label applies to nurses, to pharmacists, to executives. And in one of my earlier blogs, I made that point that we single out physicians, but disruptive behavior is rampant in
Right.
healthcare organizations in all layers of the organization. And this approach is effective in mitigating that behavior, no matter what the title of the individual.
Right. And only the reason why we're focusing on physicians is because this is a leadership platform for physicians and helping physicians to thrive. That's why. But you're right. It's rampant anywhere in other industries besides healthcare. So tell us why, you told me a little bit before, David, when we were offline, why you actually like working with him.
Yeah. So, the reason I like working with disruptive physicians in particular is because these physicians are incredibly talented, for the most part, articulate, passionate individuals about patient care. And as you said, they don't get up in the morning and think, gee, I think I'm going to be a jerk today. They get up with, the best of intentions. They care deeply about their patients. And if you can intervene to mitigate the behavior, you can turn these individuals into incredibly constructive leaders in the medical staff, incredibly productive members of hospitals and medical centers, and incredibly effective advocates for their patients and for patient safety. They're a high potential group to work with, and it's a lot of fun.
Great, thank you. I'm so glad to hear that, and this could help change the perspective of many people out there when working with difficult personalities. Can you tell us what do you mean by our approach needs to change? A lot of times we don't see it this way, but that disruptive behavior is really not a diagnosis for which there it needs to be an intervention, but really a symptom. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. You know, disruptive behavior has at least 8 different root causes. And if you focus only on the disruptive behavior and mitigating that behavior, at best, you're going to get a short-term resolution of the behavior. And at worst, it's going to be counterproductive. It's not dissimilar, Elsie, to treating every chest pain patient that comes into the emergency room as though they've got pleuritic chest pain. If you treat a MI patient as though they've got pleuritic chest pain, you've done them incredible harm. And the same goes for disruptive behavior. You need to understand the underlying root cause and then create a plan to affect that behavior based on the specific root cause that's at play.
Right. That's right. That's awesome. And do you have a systematic way of doing that, or can you tell us of your specific protocol when you're approaching that person?
Yes. So the protocol I have, it's really a framework, and it goes by the mnemonic TREK. It's a four step framework. And when I come into the organization, or when I begin working with a physician who's been labeled as demonstrating unprofessional behavior, um, the first thing I have to do, the first thing anyone has to do, is establish trust. By the time an individual has been identified as disruptive, they don't trust the administrative team, they don't trust the nurses, they frequently don't trust the medical staff, because before I get to them, the medical staff has done the proverbial cup of coffee conversation, and that probably hasn't gone well. So the first thing to do when I'm working with one of these physicians is to spend some time developing trust and making sure that they understand that I have not only the patient's best interest at heart, but I also have their best interest at heart. I want them to succeed. The next step is to really take some time to understand the root cause. What's causing this behavior? Is it a dysfunctional response to a very inefficient operating room, where instruments are not available? The instruments that are available aren't in working order, cases are behind. Um, Really understanding what's meant by disruptive behavior. You know, I once worked with a physician who was identified as disruptive because he wore half glasses, and anytime somebody said something that he didn't agree with or he didn't understand, he would lean forward and look under his half glasses, and uh, the people around him felt that that was intimidating and condescending. Um, so trust, understanding the root cause, and then evaluating the opportunities. So based on the root cause, what are the opportunities to intervene, um, either with the institution, the physician's team members, or the physician himself, to modify this perception of disruptive behavior? And often the intervention, uh, the opportunities to intervene are in all 3 of those areas. And then finally, creating and implementing a plan to affect change within the institution and within the individuals. So TREK.
Right. So I love that you're not focused on one individual or one specific area. There's three different areas that have to go along together.
Absolutely. And, again, Dr. Um,
Kashesho? Uh-huh.
Kashesho, I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago mentioned that when he talked about burnout. A physician who's burned out is likely going to be cynical, a little bit short tempered, and you can intervene with that individual to help him with his behavior. But ultimately, it's going to require uh, modification or changes within the institution as well to help build that physician's resilience, to create a sense of well-being in that individual.
Right. What are these physicians when you take them aside and you talk to them, how do they take it when you tell them that they are coming across as being intimidating or disruptive?
Yeah. Um, so it really depends on the root cause, but for kind of garden variety, if there is such a thing, disruptive physicians, they're typically um, very surprised, disbelieving, um, and again, depending on the root cause, they range from kind of angry to really, really appreciative. Um, because, like I said, they don't wake up in the morning thinking that they're going to be disruptive. They think that they are going to be constructive advocates for the staff and
Mhm.
for the patients. And so when they hear that that's not happening, they're often um, surprised and sometimes grateful.
I feel like you were talking about me, that's why I was smiling because, my last last week it was an interview of me and I was that disruptive physician that you're talking about who was surprised. I had no idea and it was surprising when my center manager came to me and said, "Elsie, that person wants to know if she can take vacation on this day." And I'm like, "Why didn't she ask me herself?" Is because she's scared of you, Elsie. She's scared. I'm like, "What do you mean she's scared of me?" And then just kept happening. And then, that one event where I was told that I made everyone cry. You're right. It surprised me. I was in shock and I was appreciative, after that, after the mourning period. Because if it weren't for that, I would have stepped up and looked for a way to change. So you're right. I think that is the garden variety because we're just not aware of leadership styles. We're not aware that in order for healthcare organizations to thrive, that a lot of times it's employees first and customers second. That's a great book to read, by the way, by Vinit Nair. Employees first, customers second, focusing not just on the patients, because we always talk about patients, 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 but it's our employees that help us help patients. So if we change that focus and that awareness for physicians, make a huge difference in our leadership.
Yes, absolutely. And just an aside, one of the projects that I'm doing right now is a research project on how the pandemic has affected healthcare,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's coming through. A number of organizations have said, we're going to reevaluate our patients first philosophy because we think that focusing on the staff first may actually ultimately put the patients first.
That's great. I think you said there's a white paper coming out of that, right?
Yes, that white paper is going to be out in the next 6 weeks or so.
Great. We'll announce that on LinkedIn. And what's the second white paper you told me about that you're doing working on?
So the second white paper is on unprofessional behavior in physicians,
Okay,
and it'll outline a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today.
great. And does it outline the 8 different root causes?
Yes, that's where we start. And in fact, on my blog, I have a series, and the series so far has gone through the first 3 causes of burnout. The next one will be on the remaining 5.
Great. So I'm just going to put your website on here if that's okay. I didn't
Sure,
already
thank you.
ask you. And is this where we can find your blog, David?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. And there's a contact me section if you want to get in touch
Okay.
with me.
Okay, great. Tell us what I can show them in terms of your contact information right now.
So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. or on my website, or you can email me or call me directly.
Okay,
So
so I have your email right here, and I do have your work phone number. So David at compassexecutivecoaching.com, and his phone number, which is 719-454-8363, if you want to reach out to Dr. Dell. Thank you so much for this interview today. Do you have any closing words that you want to say that we didn't cover?
Elsie, I think you've covered everything pretty well. Disruptive physicians are high potential individuals. To, not intervene is just a tragedy, because it's a tragedy for the physician, puts their career at risk. It's a tragedy for the organization, because these individuals cost a lot to recruit. And it's a tragedy for the patients, because these are highly talented physicians for the most part. And to remove them from a career in medicine or from the institution deprives physicians of their patients from their expertise. So,
Right. And sometimes it's just a simple shift in the way they think and their awareness that can make all the difference in their career and the workplace and what the organization is trying to accomplish.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And I love what you said to me before, David, that a lot of times the executive leaders are not aware of this problem, but when you talk to the staff who work with that doctor, even though they say they're learning to deal with it, really there is a problem that really needs to be addressed, that we need to be aware as leaders, whether you're a physician leader or an executive administrative leader. We need to say, you know what, it is here. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our physicians so that we can take care of our patients.
absolutely.
So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. We're going to be shifting gears next week, speaking to a physician who has really transformed his life from where he is, where he started out, and just really making huge, monumental changes and success in his life. How did he do that? Let's talk to him and learn from him. So if you want to reach out to me, and if you have a great story to share, please reach out to me at this email address, info@drelseyco.com. And if you're interested in learning more about Lead Physician and what we can do to help your physician, this is my website, leadphysician.org. We have a Facebook group, if you're on Facebook, to share a lot of valuable information like we're doing today. Thank you everyone for your support. Thank you for liking our videos on YouTube and on the different platforms we have here on LinkedIn, so that we can continue giving and providing and sharing these valuable tips to you. Have a great Sunday, everyone. Bye, David.
Thank you, Elsie. Bye now.